I hated the rain. I was sitting in the car, watching the drops beat against the windshield and listening to them drum on the roof. It wasn't a pleasant, soft summer rain. It was a gully washer. When the wind blew, I could see streams of water flooding the parking lot. It wasn't a hurricane, but it definitely resembled the emergency broadcasts you see on television. The air conditioner on the roof of the diner just needed to wait until it stopped. I had no intention of climbing up onto the roof and working on anything until the weather cleared up. Damn it, I shouldn't even have been here. Wednesday was my workday in Allentown. Of course, this was an emergency situation, and I was the most qualified specialist for the job. In fact, nobody else wanted to drive so far on a service contract. The diner was part of the motel. It was one of those old hotels with exterior entrances, but that was compensated by the cheap prices. I think the restaurant was used more than the hotel itself. Right now, most of the guests were checking out. The housekeepers were under the exterior awning, closer to the building, to avoid the rain. The wait was long and boring until a beige Volkswagen with a convertible top pulled into one of the nearest parking spots. I couldn't make out the license plate from the other end of the lot, but I swear, it looked exactly like my wife's Beetle. Amanda and I had been married for almost 20 years. We had 2 daughters. Colleen, who was 18 years old, would start attending day classes at Kutztown University in 3 months, and Brenda, who had just turned 16, was now in full-blown Gothic rebellion. 2 complete opposites. Although Amanda and I went to the same high school, I truly got to know her later when she worked as a waitress at a local diner. My time in school was not the happiest period of my life. For as long as I can remember, I had a terrible stutter, and the teenage fear that accompanied it was even worse. I became withdrawn and sullen. I only spoke when necessary, and even then, with as few words as possible. My teachers were instructed never to call on me in class. I don't know if that made things easier or harder for me. Most of my classmates considered me weak-minded. I never felt that way because I had no point of reference. I always knew when I was being used or bullied in some way. Sometimes I resorted to physical means to stop certain types of harassment, and it always seemed to work. I was halfway through a technical course on air conditioner repair when I finally got the chance to meet Amanda. In fact, the first time she took my order at the diner was the only time I had spoken to her. In school, I didn't date anyone for obvious reasons, and I absolutely had no social skills to speak of. For more than a month, all I did was order food, eat it, and leave. Of course, with generous tips. Amanda was always polite and pleasant. I felt comfortable around her. It took a lot of courage on my part, but eventually, I asked her out on a date, to which she readily agreed. She seemed not to mind that I let her lead all our conversations. When I did speak, I tried to keep it monosyllabic. She was well aware of my speech defect, but deliberately tried not to mention it in any way. We dated for several months before things became serious. By that, I mean sexual attraction. It was obvious that I had no experience whatsoever, but she was very understanding and managed to guide us through it without any awkwardness. Although I never mentioned it, I had a distinct feeling that she had been through all this before. I genuinely felt that it was her business, and I didn't need to know what she had been up to before meeting me. We had a small civil ceremony right after I finished technical school. I had a full-time job waiting for me, and the salary was better than I expected. Amanda continued to work at the diner until she got pregnant with Colleen. From that moment, she became a full-time wife and mother. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Life was good. Out of curiosity, I continued trying to make out the license plate on the Beetle, but it was impossible due to the heavy rain. A silver Mercedes parked away from the Beetle, and a man with an umbrella got out. I was impressed by how he coordinated his movement. He approached the Volkswagen and opened the driver's door. My stomach clenched as I watched Amanda get out of the car and embrace the man. They half ran, half walked to the hotel's awning. They were laughing as he closed the umbrella and took a room key out of his coat pocket. I sat in the parking lot for more than 2 hours. The rain had stopped, but I didn't care. I got out of the car just enough to approach the Mercedes and take down the car's registration number. Finally, they came out of the room, still laughing, and headed back to their cars. Before getting into the Volkswagen, Amanda quickly kissed her companion on the cheek. That's how a wife kisses her husband, not a lover. She never noticed my car parked on the other side of the lot. It seemed she paid attention to nothing but her companion. I cried, watching as they both left the parking lot. I never did fix the air conditioner in the diner. Returning to the workshop took less time. The boss was upset that I hadn't completed the task, but his annoyance turned to extreme disappointment when I told him I was quitting. He didn't argue with me or demand explanations. When I got to the bank, I cashed my final paycheck and withdrew everything except $6,000 from various bank accounts. The savings account was meant for buying a new house, and the money market account held the girls' college funds. Now both were empty. As I drove to Kutztown, I realized Brenda would never go to college. The only thing lower than her grades was her attitude. I couldn't understand what I had done to make her turn against me, and I was afraid to ask. In fact, she was as estranged from her mother as she was from me. Colleen and Brenda were raised exactly the same but turned out completely different. I felt a twinge of guilt, which quickly passed, since I had prepaid Colleen's college tuition for all 4 years. It was close enough to home that I didn't have to worry about dormitory fees and meal plans. Amanda was home when I arrived. As always, I took off my wet shoes at the entrance door. She came out of the kitchen to meet me. "John, what are you doing home at this time? I thought you were supposed to be in Allentown all day." Walking past her to the bedroom, I smiled and quickly pecked her on the cheek, just as she had kissed her lover 3 hours earlier. She looked puzzled when I didn't answer her question. My first suitcase was half packed when she entered the bedroom. "John? What the hell is happening? What are you doing?" She just stood there while I continued to pack my things. All I took were my underwear, shoes, and my work clothes. "Are you going to answer me? What happened? Just because you had a bad day at work doesn't mean you should leave. I assume you're leaving because you're packing your things. Damn it, answer me. I'm your wife. You're supposed to share this with me." I paused for a moment and looked at her. She knew better than to interrupt me or try to rush my speech. I wasn't working in Allentown today. There was no hesitation, no stuttering. It was a simple statement, but I delivered it perfectly. Amanda stood silently, waiting for me to continue. I finished packing my things and stopped again. "I worked in York today." It was another short, simple phrase, and it also sounded perfect. Slow and collected. As I was getting my shoes from the closet, I noticed my wife quietly leaving the room. She said nothing. She was sitting on the couch in the living room when I headed for the front door. It took just a moment to put my work boots back on. I looked back one more time before leaving. Her eyes were moist, but she wasn't crying as she watched me walk out the door. She offered no explanations or apologies. I was near Hagerstown when my cell phone rang. Given the circumstances, I thought it might be easier to communicate if I learned to text, but just using a cell phone was an achievement for me. It was Colleen. "Hi, Dad. Where are you?" Hagerstown. "Mom told us you left, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay." "I'm okay. Dad, do you want me to do anything? Can I help in any way?" "No." It's hard to have an extended conversation with someone when the words don't come out smoothly. There were a million things I wanted to say to my daughter, but I didn't feel up to it. Mom told Brenda and me what happened. She didn't go into much detail, but we both knew about it for a long time. "I'm not happy it happened, but I'm glad you finally know. You and Brenda knew about this? It's been about 3 years. I feel foolish." "Don't, Dad. Don't do that to yourself. You're a good father and a good husband. Never think otherwise." I didn't respond to her. I didn't know what to say, and I didn't want to talk anymore. It was too much to digest all at once. My stomach was in knots, but I wasn't hungry. "Dad? Dad? Are you there? Are you okay?" "I'll be okay. By the way, I paid for your schooling in full. You're all set for admission." "I don't care about that. I care about you." "Thank you, sweetheart. I have to go now." I turned off my phone, not giving her a chance to say anything else. I was having dinner at Cracker Barrel in Harrisonburg when I noticed a small ad for a maintenance manager position with a focus on air conditioning and heating. After a brief phone call, I had an interview scheduled for the next morning. I had never actually had an interview for a job before, so I was a bit nervous. My obvious speech defect didn't help my confidence. If I got the job, great. If not, nothing lost. Oakbrook Meadows was a small nursing home affiliated with a church. It was old and looked as though it had been added onto several times. There was no structure or organization throughout the facility. It was a jumble of buildings desperately in need of assistance. "Good morning. You must be Mr. Tyson. My name is Don Watson. Do you mind if I call you John?" That's fine." We shook hands, and I sat down. Over the next 30 minutes, Don Watson gave me a complete history lesson on Oakbrook Meadows and confirmed the complexity of the operation. My initial observation was about money. It was a non-profit organization, and they were struggling with funding to keep it open. More than 100 retired seniors lived there until they could maintain their independence. When they became too sick or old to care for themselves, they were legally transferred to a state facility. The costs of outsourcing all repairs and maintenance were so burdensome to their budget that they were considering closing the entire establishment. Hiring a full-time maintenance manager was their last desperate attempt. So far, they hadn't been very lucky. The salary they offered was really poor. The perk was the use of a small apartment in the basement of the main building and meals in the communal dining hall. It took me 3 days to make the apartment livable. The food was tasty and convenient. It seemed everything would be fine. I was happy. There was a fully equipped workshop with an assortment of manuals and spare parts. The air conditioning and heating didn't seem to be a problem, but I had no experience with things like dishwashers, stoves, and built-in refrigeration units. Plumbing difficulties baffled me, but I managed to overcome them. I spent the entire weekend studying the facility's insurance policies. At first, everything progressed quite slowly. After dealing with a few things that needed immediate repair, I conducted a full inventory of items that required or would require some maintenance. I tried to balance the situation a bit to mix some simple tasks with more complex ones. This made the day-to-day work somewhat easier. Of course, critical issues were the priority. It only took a few weeks to get used to a comfortable daily routine. By day, I took care of business, and by night, I made my new dwelling livable. I kept my cell phone charged but turned off. I had a landline for work and an old computer with Windows 7, which I set up to keep track of maintenance. Don was pleased with my work, and I was satisfied with the situation as a whole. Life was good. It's been more than 3 months since I left. I decided to call Colleen on her birthday. It was my first contact since I left. I was surprised that no one had tried to reach out to me and depressed that nobody seemed to care to try. Of course, my phone had been off almost all this time. Colleen. It's Dad. Happy birthday. Dad. It's so good to hear from you. Your phone has been off. Where are you and what are you doing? I've been worried about you. Slow down. One question at a time. I'm okay. I have a JJ job and a place to live. I'm more concerned about how you're doing. School is good. I'm living in a dorm room with 2 other girls. I've been sticking to the meal plan instead of going home to eat. I have a part-time job at a snack bar near campus. Do you need anything? No, I'm fine. Is everything else okay? No, not exactly. Mom is really down. She told Brenda and me about what happened. I don't think she regrets what she did, but she's sorry that she got caught. She got a job at Zinna's snack bar, but I don't think she's making enough to keep the house. She sold all your tools and junk from the garage and is selling off the furniture. The last time I talked to her, she said she was going to talk to the bank about the mortgage payments. I think she's planning to give the house back. It's a shame. It was a good house. Oh, by the way, Brenda disappeared. A few weeks after you left, Brenda and Mom had a big fight. Just so you know, you're not Brenda's biological father. It's some guy from Gettysburg named Samuelson. I think he's the guy she was seeing the day you found out. Anyway, Brenda left and sent a postcard from San Francisco. It feels like I'm the cause of a lot of suffering. No, Dad, it's not like that. Mom brought all of this on herself. Colleen, give me your address. I'll send you a power of attorney so it's easier for your mother to get rid of the house. You don't have to do that, but it would make things easier for Mom. Staff did not eat with the residents of Oakbrook Meadows. They ate a little later and in a separate part of the dining hall. By this time, I had become friends with other employees and a few of the residents. I don't know why I thought of them as inmates, but it seemed fitting. Ivy James soon became a regular at my dining table. Ivy was in charge of laundry at the facility. Actually, she was the launderer at the facility. Most of the residents did their laundry in the communal laundry room, which I also had to maintain. If there was a way to break a washing machine or dryer, they quickly found it. Ivy was about 40 or so. She wasn't a dazzling beauty, but she wasn't a crocodile either. I learned that she was single and had never been married. She worked hard and was in pretty good shape, as far as I could tell. She lived with her parents, who dropped her off and picked her up from work. What set her apart from everyone else and endeared her to me was that she was deaf. Before I knew it, I found myself spending more and more time with Ivy. She had a small notebook on a strap around her neck, and she used it when necessary. Usually, she managed just fine without it. She was quite good at reading lips, and for some reason, I didn't stutter when I was with her. I didn't even need to speak the words. I could just mouth them. This was somewhat comforting. She never made me feel embarrassed about my affliction. Our relationship improved when she invited me to spend Thanksgiving with her family. Her parents and sister did not have hearing impairments. Both her mother and sister were fluent in English. Her father was good-natured about it, but relied on the two women to translate for him. They quickly noticed my stutter and tried to steer the conversation in such a way that I could minimize talking, but still feel included. Overall, it was a good experience. Ivy and I grew closer. The Virginia School for the Deaf was a 30-minute drive away, in Staunton. I had no trouble enrolling in evening English Sign Language courses, even mid-semester. I didn't tell Ivy, but she sensed something was up when I started paying more attention to her gestures at different times. When I finally told her, she was radiant and offered to stay up late to help me with my homework. The school explained that it would probably take about 2 years to become proficient enough to carry on a simple conversation, but I needed to start somewhere, and I was motivated. Work was good. I had a sort of personal life, but I wasn't really dating anyone. With each passing day, the pain I felt from the dissolution of my marriage faded more and more. Colleen called and told me she would come for Christmas. She didn't ask me, she told me. How could I say no? There were several guest rooms available at Oakbrook Meadows, so it was easy for me to reserve one for her. I was a bit worried about her meeting Ivy, but there was no need. As soon as Colleen realized that Ivy was deaf, she started to gesture. She wasn't very good at it, but good enough for them to converse for a long time without me. Colleen had taken 2 sign language courses in high school and had furthered her education in college. Of course, dear old dad knew nothing about this. It seems she had already decided to major in special education at Kutztown. In the end, we spent most of the Christmas break with Ivy and her parents. Of course, I still had to take care of repairs. It seemed everything continued to break down, despite it being the holiday. Colleen didn't seem to mind that I sometimes had to leave her. I was a bit embarrassed when Ivy kissed me under the mistletoe, but Colleen seemed to enjoy my discomfort. Before leaving, Colleen casually mentioned that, in her opinion, Amanda was still in touch with Jeff Samuelson. It wasn't something she told Colleen directly, but just small hints and things she accidentally said or referred to. Colleen got the impression that she was planning something that was supposed to happen in the future and was looking forward to it. 2 weeks later, I was satisfied. She didn't ask for anything. She just wanted a divorce. I signed everything and sent it back to her lawyer. Only one thing bothered me. I was furious. She used me, took advantage of my situation, and then felt she could just discard me when I was no longer needed. It was wrong. I know. I left her and opened that door. It was still wrong, and I wanted to find some balance. I was happy with my new life and, generally, should have just accepted my luck and moved on. I couldn't do it. Ivy didn't gloat when I told her about the divorce, but it was obvious her mood had slightly improved. She was the same as before, but better. My nights were sleepless as I continued to think about being used. My pride was shattered. She messed up, and I was the only one who suffered. I know that's usually how it goes, but I still didn't like it. I needed to calm down. It was Monday, 6 a.m. I was drinking coffee at the Ugly Mug Cafe in Gettysburg, waiting for Jeff Samuelson to leave for work. He left his house at 7 a.m., just as I arrived. I dressed up a bit for my meeting with Mrs. Samuelson because I didn't want her to feel uncomfortable. I had no idea what I was going to say when I rang the doorbell. Even though it was still early, she was already dressed. I was afraid she would be in pajamas or a robe. Yes? Can I help you? Mrs. Samuelson, my name is John Tyson. I was hoping I could take a minute of your time. Are you selling something, Mr. Tyson? I don't think we would be interested. No, ma'am. This is a personal matter concerning your husband and my wife. She stood silently, deep in thought. I couldn't tell if she was about to ask me to leave or invite me in. Is your wife's name by any chance Amanda? Isn't it? Yes, ma'am. Please, come in, Mr. Tyson. We really need to talk. The next 2 hours were spent with Mary Samuelson. When I left to return home, I wasn't sure if I felt better or worse. She had suspected something for years, but could never pin down anything specific. She was calm and stoic for most of our conversation until I mentioned Brenda. That's when her demeanor changed. That's when I decided it was time to leave. My job was done. The first thing I did upon returning was to tell Ivy everything. I couldn't start a relationship with her if we had secrets. She seemed to understand and spent a little extra time trying to comfort me. Everything came full circle. Ivy and I were looking into adopting a home. We were too old to start our own family, but Ivy was interested in either foster care or adoption. We explored our options and found out that our chances of adopting children with hearing impairments were quite high. People in Staunton would be more than happy to help us. Dad, it's Colleen. I wasn't expecting a call from my daughter in the middle of the night. Hi. Is everything okay? Not really, but you don't have to worry. I'm at the Baptist Hospital in York. Mom was shot. She's okay, but I felt I had to call you. Okay. And now you've got my attention. What the heck happened? From what I can piece together, Mom and Mr. Samuelson were dining at Cracker Barrel when Mrs. Samuelson walked in and fired a .22 caliber revolver at them. All shots missed except for one, which just grazed Mom in the right arm. It wasn't serious, but she needed medical attention. They're going to discharge her in a couple of hours. I'll stay here, then take her home. What happened to her boyfriend? He didn't get a scratch, but he vanished suddenly before the cops arrived. He just left Mom in a bind. Mrs. Samuelson sat in a chair and calmly waited for the police to arrive. I suppose there's no reason for me to come there? No. I'll take her home. I'll call you later. Oh, I forgot, Mom is really mad about her boyfriend running off on her. I've never seen her so furious. Thanks for the call. VB, by the way, keep some time free in early April. Your dad is going to get married. Congratulations. I'll definitely be there. Oh, I won't tell Mom. It would really crush her right now. See you. Hanging up the phone, I thought it would be best to tell Ivy something about the upcoming wedding. And so ends the saga of the quiet, cool-headed man. He bought a house and moved into it with his new wife. They adopted 3 children and fostered several more. Colleen got a job teaching at the Virginia School for the Deaf and got married a year later. John continued to work at Oakbrook Meadows, but Ivy did not. Amanda still works at the snack bar. Jeff Samuelson was never seen again. Life is beautiful.